Nicole. And Nicole has been doing this for a while.
2005 was my first production job.
And
bought wine before
yeah,
that.
but you took a long route for that. You didn't exactly start out on the West Coast, did you?
No, I'm from New England, Vermont,
Yep.
and so I grew up shoveling snow and chopping wood. I'm the oldest of 3 children, the only girl.
That's good training for punching down wine.
If I only knew then. But I always dreamt, I had the California dream. I wanted to, when I was a kid, I wanted to move to California and go to college here. But that didn't work out. I wound up going to college in upstate New York, where I studied political science. My father's a carpenter. My mom, she went to nursing school when I was in high school. So I'm from like a lower middle class family, but I put myself through college, and I wanted to be an environmental lawyer, when I was 18. Second year into college, I realized I never could be a lawyer. I'm a horrible liar. I did.
Hope there are no lawyers in the audience.
But I really was enjoying my environmental science courses, and I just fell in love with geology. That was my first passion. So I took all the geology courses I could take. And although I did graduate with a degree in poli-sci, I had more credits towards geology, and that's what brought me to California. I wanted to come to grad school out here.
Yeah, but you actually came out and did something. You had an aunt connection out here who does interesting stuff, and you managed to hang out with her for a little while, right?
I was fortunate enough. My dad's oldest brother lived in Davis, and his wife I had never gotten the chance to hang out with too much, but they were so kind, and they said, you could come and stay with us for a year, so if you like California. So I jumped at that opportunity, and my aunt was incredibly intelligent, wonderful chemist. She has a PhD in chemistry from Duke, and she's retired now, but she had her own environmental lab based in Davis, but she's real smarty. And she loves teaching, so she actually helped me get my first job out of college at an air lab, where that's where I really got involved with
an
the
air
world
lab.
of
Think about
chemistry.
this. They sample the air.
It's important.
I've heard of airwar before. Are you looking for airwar? Are you looking for eucalyptus effects?
That was a job that lasted about 2 years. I absolutely hated it. And I thought it was really just like straight out of college. I wasn't, 8 hours a day sitting at a desk sort of deal. Like maybe this, I just need to get used to it. But it was so sterile. I thought it was pretty boring. And it just wasn't for me. But in the meantime, I was taking a lot of chemistry courses and learning a lot. But one day I just said, I'm tired of the commute. I was commuting an hour each way to Folsom in traffic and from Davis. And I had some waitressing experience. So I said, I'm just going to get a waitressing job and focus on some math courses and get myself into grad school.
And you ended up in effectively a wine shop waitressing business. You ended up in Wineland.
Yeah, I got really lucky because I was literally just looking for a job.
So you ultimately had to learn about wine by tasting. You really didn't come into it with any sort of preconceived notion. So you ended up in a situation where you could taste a lot.
That is definitely true. The man who owned this wine shop, it was called Tuco's in Davis. It was a European-style shop, and this man had been collecting wine for decades and was truly very passionate about tasting, and pretty much took me under his wing, and within, 6 months, I was made the wine buyer to my surprise, and I was meeting with all of the people that were selling wine, and it just so happened that this shop sold rare and hard to find wines, so I was tasting some really high-end, great stuff.
So what's it like? Have guys like us coming in and saying, Nicole, you're the person who's going to change the fate of my wine. What can I do to make you happy?
Absolutely.
Can I give you a big deal? Can I bring you some special wines? Yeah. What was it like? And actually, the other corollary for that is, what's it like being on the other side of that now?
Oh, that's interesting. Well, I will say, I would meet with distributors, and my favorite was always to meet with the producers because I really learned a lot from them. And we always let the wine speak for itself. So, people who did sell wine to us, they knew if they start talking it up so much, the wine's not speaking for them itself. They're speaking for it, and it's just a little off-putting, personally. But so being on the other side now, I don't know. It's tough to sell wine. I love making wine, but it is tough to get out there in front of the buyers.
So, would you rather be a buyer or a seller?
Buyer. For sure.
Yeah, that is tough. So you kind of went from there. You saw an opportunity to be in the wine business, and you jumped at it. About the same time, of course, you had been working to get into a geology graduate program, and you ended up getting entrance to Stanford. And you didn't go to Stanford, did you?
No.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, by that time, a patron at that wine shop was a winemaker named Mark West. He was my first mentor. He was starting a new winery with growers from Winters, where I now live. And he's like, yeah, you seem like, I'm looking for an employee for my new winery. What do you think? And I said, let me see. Waitressing or working in a winery, I will absolutely go to work with you at the winery. So he was another really smart man, PhD in biochemistry from Johns Hopkins, I believe, but really passionate about teaching. So he taught me a lot. And luckily this was in Davis, so I was also taking a lot of courses. Eventually, I don't know, like 4 years later, I wound up starting the winemaking certificate program, which was very valuable. For me, I feel like I got a lot more out of it after having some hands-on experience.
So you moved around a little bit from one winery to another. And then somewhere along the way, you did what all the young people of your generation is. You ran away from California to make wine someplace else.
That I did. I went to New Zealand, to Marlborough, and that was inspired by a 2012 harvest that I worked in Napa at Kenzo Estate. With Heidi Barrett would fly in our helicopter and come and taste the wines, and it was such an interesting place to work. I was vying for a cellar position, so there was 5 people on the harvest crew. I was the only female, and all of us at the end of the harvest, one person was going to be hired full-time. And this was such a cool winery with amazing wine, so we all, of course, wanted that job. One of the first days I was working there, we were vineyard sampling, and I will never forget tasting their Sauvignon Blanc off the vine. It was phenomenal, just fell in love with it right then and there. They focus on Bordeaux varieties, and still to this day, their Sauvignon Blanc's my fave, and I did not get that position. Long story short, the guy who drove the forklift the whole harvest did, but I think that was a blessing in disguise because I said, maybe I'll take this Sauvignon Blanc path. So I applied and spent a harvest in 2013 in Marlborough, and it was really.
And the winery was?
It was actually a custom crush house, but mainly mud house.
Mud house.
Mm-hmm. But New Zealand wineries limited.
Can get into the muck in a place like that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So you learned a lot about Sauvignon Blanc, but you also saw a lot of women winemakers. That could serve as role models. N'est-ce pas?
Yeah, that's true. This custom crush house, there were 16 different wineries, ranging from all different sizes, and my favorites were a couple of women. This one Italian lady and a very memorable Kiwi woman named Jules Taylor. She I don't know, if you ever get the chance to taste those wines, they're amazing, but she just was very encouraging and very nice to everyone. And, sometimes you have the winemaker that they've earned their keep, and you're the cellar intern. There was 60 of us, and, why would they want to talk with you? But this woman, I got to spend time with her every day, and she really was an inspiration to me.
That's great. So you come back, you get more involved in wine, and you ultimately end up in charge, through one fate or another. We probably ought to touch on your wines before we run out of time, but do you want to talk a little bit about these two wines?
Yeah, I just completed my 5th harvest at Berry-Essegat Vineyards. I have mainly worked in Yolo County. I think it's a hidden gem that there are not a lot of vineyards planted there, but there's a lot of microclimates and it has a really rich agricultural history. So 2013 was my first harvest. I'm not gonna lie, it's not my favorite wine, but we're tasting it today so you can get an idea of kind of where I started at the winery. I'm the second winemaker there. We have a really special estate-grown vineyard. It was planted in '98, and our parent company is Martinez Orchards. So our winery stemmed from a successful rootstock company. And that was started in the 60s. So the family that I work for, they planted this vineyard after doing a lot of research and selling a lot of great material. So this was actually made in my predecessor's style. Used the same yeast, and I just didn't want to rock the boat too much when I came in. And I learned a lot.
So
changed it
small
ever since.
fermenters, and so I guess maybe the way to approach this is, so you have this other wine. So what did you change? What did
Lots
you
of
bring
stuff.
that you thought would make the wine more
Everything's
interesting?
hand-picked, everything's hand-sorted. 2-ton fermenters mix 3 times a day. We do inoculate because we happen to be in a building with a brewery. So the second wine, it's
Nothing
a
like
barrel
good
sample.
beer yeast in wine, huh?
Yes, that is true. So 2016 Zin is a special fermentation technique that I had heard about, and it's called submerged cap. So we fabricated these stainless steel screens that we put on top of the fermenter, and instead of mixing your cap in with your juice the whole time, the cap's always submerged, and you get, I think, a lot of different darker flavors. We are in a hot climate, so we tend to get a lot of red fruit, which you'll notice in the 13, and I think we are closer to the mark with the 16, getting some more blue fruit, and you also get, I think, better aromatics, better color
So
concentration.
typically you pick at the end of August, early September?
Yep, the red's always the first. We start our harvest in July with the whites, and then our Primitivo, this is 100% Primitivo you guys are tasting, grown on clay soil, a little alluvial, about 50-foot elevation, but wait, what's your question?
So I thought I should also mention that submerged cap technique is what Ridge uses as well.
Yes.
So it's a pretty classic approach to winemaking. There are other people who play with it for various things. It's much more gentle and less extractive, of course, than punch down.
I think it makes a more elegant wine.
Mm-hmm.
It's rounder. I've noticed it's more age-worthy. The number 5 wine, or the 2013 Primitivo, ours in is 14.5, and this is closer to 14. So our goal is lower alcohol.
So your goal is brighter, fresher, more acid. Hey, this new gen is doing this thing. They're bringing Zinfandel back into sort of classic form. Thank you, Nicole.
Thank you.
Really appreciate your wines. Appreciate your input.
Thank you, Joel.
Thank
It
you
was
so
fun.
much.